Welcome back to Author Mastery Insights. I am with Dr. Liam Schubel, and this is going to be such an incredible conversation. I'm so excited by it. Dr. Liam, welcome, brother. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Dr. Marcus. I hope that everyone has their 5-point seatbelt on because we're about to take off.
Well, yes, I hope they do. And I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time. Before we get into talking about some of these books, I'm going to talk about that in a moment, but I want to provide some background for those not familiar. Dr. Liam is a chiropractic ambassador to the world, passion-filled, purpose-driven. He's co-author of 2 internationally acclaimed books, as we are speaking about, To Be Chiropractors. I want to talk deeply about that one, but also this absolute rock star of a book, The Holy Grail of Business, which so many people call the fundamental textbook for chiropractic success. In addition to these wonderful contributions to the chiropractic body of work and literature, currently owns 24 chiropractic offices in 3 different countries. He's served on the board of trustees of Sherman College and also has been president, or past president, of the International Federation of Chiropractic and Organizations, and is the founder of Schubel Vision Elite, an incredible private mentoring group that has transformed so many chiropractic offices throughout the world. He is a legend of our profession. But let's start here. I want to know why you wrote. Let's talk about this one a little bit later, but I want to talk to chiropractors and the calling that chiropractic has. Why write a book about chiropractic calling?
Well, I asked myself that many times when I was writing it, because I have to tell you, for a man, for at least this man, writing that book was like having a baby, I think, for me. My goodness, was it a painful process, because when you put your thoughts down on a paper and you're going to be judged by those for eternity, you really have to think what it is you're going to say and refine it and refine it and refine it and refine it. I originally started out with the idea to write the book To Be Chiropractors because I had been very successful in practice. I was seeing, after about 6 months, my first 6 months in practice, I was seeing about 1,000 visits a week. So I went from 0 to hero. And by the way, that's in a country where I couldn't even speak the language when I got there. And so I thought that just chiropractic was something, simple. I just thought it was simple to be successful. I thought if I could do it, anyone could do it. And I was certainly on fire. I have to say, I had no experience. I had not really, much training other than, just graduating from chiropractic college. And I had no business training or anything. But what I did have was this unquenchable passion. I mean, these 2 questions that one of my mentors, Dr. Donnie Epstein, says, the quality of your questions determines the quality of your life. And I had these 2 burning questions that every day I woke up and I said, how can I serve more people? That's the question. I would meditate for a half hour just on that. How can I serve more people? That's what I'm thinking about all the time. I used to have rosary beads, from the Catholic Church. And if I had a dull moment, I wasn't seeing anybody, I would take those beads, and instead of saying a prayer, I would say, new patient, new patient, new patient. I wanted my mindset, my focus on service, 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 service. And the second question I would ask myself is, how can I serve the people that I'm already serving better? That Kaizen of chiropractic, that idea that the Japanese have, that philosophy of a constant state of improvement. As B.J. Palmer said, whenever you think you're ripe, that's when you start to rot. And I didn't want to rot at all. I wanted to continue this ripening process and continue learning and continue growing. And I remember, I got to 1,000 a week, and I'm like, okay, well, this is all I can see myself. So I want to serve more people. How am I going to serve more people? And I started to bring down associates, and I started to grow the practice and all this kind of a thing. And I realized that not everybody had this mindset. And a lot of people I found were beaten down by the scholastic academic process. A lot of people were beaten down by third-party paying systems, by government regulations and things like that. A lot of people were beaten down because they never received the philosophy of chiropractic, and they never received any training on how to communicate it. They didn't know the value of what it is that they were doing or how to communicate that. And so I looked at, some of my mentors really what they had in common was they had this unquenchable desire to give, to love, to serve, and to inspire people. And I wanted to encapsulate that magic, that moment that you either have the chiropractic experience that says, wow, this is great for me, I want to do this for other people. Or like what happened to me, somebody in my family had a tragic event happen, and chiropractic saved their life and, brought them back from the abyss of a life of horrible health. And then our whole family started to live a life without fear, as Dr. Fred Barge used to say. We went from living in a medicine cabinet to living just free of all medical intervention, cases except like accidents or some type of emergency, but just optimized lifestyle. And seeing that happen with my children then, watching them be superheroes in comparison to the other kids that were, under this constant druggery that was happening, in the culture. And again, I remember coming back, I had 1,000 a week. I think I had 5 practices at the time. And I came back to the United States with my oldest kids. I wanted them to go to school in the United States. I've been working outside the country. And I was so on fire. I was so excited. I was so in love with this thing called chiropractic. And I sat down, my brother invited me, he's a chiropractor as well. He invited me to a lunch with some chiropractors. And I got to tell you, after a half hour with these guys, I wanted to throw up my lunch. I mean, they were so depressing, and it was like a pity party. They were all just talking about how bad things were and how horrible things were. And I said, is this what it is all about? This is what you've committed your life to? I mean, they hated every day. If you had offered them, a decent amount of money, they would leave chiropractic in 2 seconds. And they would literally do almost anything within the scope of chiropractic if it could make them money. And I just thought, how sad is this, right? Is this what we all got into this thing for? And that's when I decided to sit down with my partner, Dr. Judd O'Grady. He's another person that no matter where he goes on the planet, I call him a chiropractic paratrooper. You can, push him out of an airplane anywhere in the world with a parachute, of course, and he'll come out with his pisiforms blazing when he lands, and he'll build a practice anywhere, anytime. And we've all done cash practices everywhere. We've never had a third-party paying system. We're completely free, but what it is we've learned how to create value for chiropractic, and it's fun. It's fun. When you understand how to communicate chiropractic from a nonverbal, and that's key, a nonverbal and a verbal standpoint, when you can marry those two and they're congruent and they're speaking from an absolute level of alineation and certainty, you're unstoppable. And people will come out of the woodwork to come see you. Everybody loves a doctor who's passionate about what they're doing, who loves the people that he's serving, recognizes inside that it's a blessing. It's an honor and a privilege to serve these people. That's the idea. I don't come in from, I'm Dr. Schubel, I saw 1,000 business a week, I have 24 practices. That's not my point of view when I come into the office. I mean, I appreciate hearing you say that, but my point of view is, how honored am I to be in the presence of this person? How amazing is it to watch this person unfold, to peel back the onion layers and watch the genius from within express itself. BJ Palmer said, genius is not property of the few, it's buried within us all. And we as chiropractors have that ability to unleash that genius that's buried within each individual through the power of our hands. I just finished a tour, a chiropractic speaking tour in Mexico. I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's 3 chiropractic colleges in Mexico. So I was speaking in Mexico at the chiropractic colleges. And one of the things I always say is that moment when I learned how to adjust is the moment that my life completely changed. My value as a human being completely changed. I remember when I was a student, poorer than poor, in debt. I used to date somebody and say, well, what's your net worth? Well, it's negative. Okay. It starts with a negative. Okay. So if you have 0, you're richer than I am, because I'm worth negative money. Right. And I know chiropractic students watching this, and in part, this book, Has to Be Chiropractors, was written for chiropractic students, but it's also written for chiropractic doctors. It's also written, a lot of people have decided to go to chiropractic college because of this book. So I said there's 3 types of people that read this book and it changes their lives: chiropractic students, people that didn't realize that they were cast to be chiropractors read this and say, I guess I was cast to be a chiropractor. I got to go to chiropractic college. And chiropractors who have lost their passion, they've lost their on fireness, their spizzerinctum, they read this, they go, oh yeah, now I remember why I'm in this. This could be great if I could change this and make this great. So I remember being a student, and we had a class called Diversified, and we're learning diversified adjustments. And I set up on the practice on my fellow student, and I was an occiput move. And so I have it rotated like this, and I misunderstood, we're only supposed to do setups because we're not licensed, right? So we're only supposed to set up and show it to the teacher. So I have it set up like that, it's at tension, and the teacher goes, okay. And I go, I assume, okay, man, okay, adjust them. And I crock, and the student goes, ah, and I go, ah. And I remember thinking, like, I better call my attorney because I'm definitely getting sued over this, right? And the student got up and said, man. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, man, no, it's good. I had a headache all day and it's completely, I feel great. I feel like the power is coming into my body. And I was just like this. For the rest of your life, once you know how to detect, analyze, and adjust vertebral subluxation, for the rest of your life, these things can optimize the human experience. So every human from that point on, I mean, you talk about, Tony Robbins talks about personal power, but you talk about the personal power that you have, the value that you have as an individual that can optimize. Show me a human with a spine, just let me at them, and I will optimize their human experience on this planet. You give me a top athlete, I'll make them even topper. I'll make them even better. You give me a politician, I'll have him be making great decisions for the country, and the control over you will be phenomenal, right? We've got politicians. I think about this when I'm driving in the car. I look to my right, I look to my left, and I go, these truck drivers, these camion drivers they're subluxated, and then they're driving these death mobiles, right? And I'm like, the surgeon is doing these delicate operations, and he's got the brainstem being pressed on by the atlas or the axis. How better would his surgeries be if he was cleared from vertebral subluxation? So when you start to understand the true power of what we do, the power that you have to unleash the power, the unlimited power that's available to every human being on this planet. As we said, genius is not property of the few, it's buried within them all. And we as chiropractors are the only doctors in the world that are highly trained to detect, analyze, and adjust vertebral subluxation. Well, then if you understand that, and you understand we live our life through the nerve system, and you understand that chiropractic optimizes that nerve system, then you understand that we are crucial to the transformation and evolution of the planet, because that's what chiropractic does. It's involved in the nerve system and optimizing that nerve system. And that's the system that controls and coordinates, and we express every component of life through that nerve system. So that's the big idea of chiropractic. And I wanted to reconnect people to that big idea in chiropractic and to get the big why. Why are we doing this? It trumps everything. So that's what I found. I wanted to reconnect students that felt like they were beat down and I still get people today, from Australian chiropractic colleges, from chiropractic colleges in Europe, from some of the chiropractic colleges in the United States saying, Schubel, I was going to quit. I had enough. I was in love with chiropractic, and I went to school and they taught me not to be in love with chiropractic. Like, they taught me almost to hate myself and to think that I'm dangerous as a chiropractor in some way. And I read this book and I said, okay, the system hasn't changed. You went through the same thing, Schubel. That's what I talk about in this book. My experiences in chiropractic college, where we had to go through one ridiculous thing after another that had nothing to do with chiropractic. How did we maintain our love, keep that fire burning while we're in this situation of absolute torture, which some people know as accredited chiropractic colleges throughout the world? That's one thing, right? So then the other thing is we found is that chiropractors they get beat up by the legislation, by their inability to communicate chiropractic, and a lot of that nonverbal communication. We talk about in my Schubel Vision Elite program, the online mentorship program I have, there's one of the business systems we talk about is conversion. And that's basically sales, taking a potential patient and making them, having them see that chiropractic is a value and that they want to invest in it and they want to, start to be under chiropractic care. And, so many people get involved in scripting, and I like scripting. I think scripting's great, but you have to combine that scripting with mindset, because what you're thinking is determining how you're expressing nonverbal communication. And nonverbal communication is almost everything in communication. You can almost go scriptless, but be perfectly in tune and aligned and talking with certainty from a nonverbal standpoint, and you would have your conversion rates go through the roof. And that's another thing. People tell me that after they read this book, they had the same conversion strategies, but all of a sudden the conversion percentages went through the roof. And that's because your mindset, right? The bigger the vision, the bigger the life. Your mindset determines your growth. Your mindset determines you are right now the sum total. You're exactly where you deserve to be. You're the sum total of all the thoughts and actions you've taken. That's what's gotten to you where you are right now. So if that's depressed, if that's like feeling anxious all the time, if that's feeling like you're a failure, you're there because of your thoughts and because of your actions. If you want to change that, get some new thoughts and combine those thoughts then with action steps and watch your whole life transform. Watch the whole world around you transform when you start to transform yourself. And so that's the reason that we bought this. We created this book for people. And thankfully, the reviews have been absolutely phenomenal. I'm still surprised the corners of the world that this thing arrives in. And again, it's also very cool to have a layperson read this. I know a lot of people that give this as gifts to people that are considering becoming a chiropractor. Like we have, if our patients in the practice, show some promise that maybe chiropractic could be a profession for them, we say, hey, read this. Tell me what you think about this. And I got to tell you, 9 times out of 10, they go, done. I'm cast to be a chiropractor. Let's go. And they sign up to go to chiropractic college. So you're going to lose a lot of practice members if you give these out you'll lose them to chiropractic college. But that's not a bad thing, because we certainly need more on fire chiropractors. Absolutely. That's what's going to change and transform the world.
Yeah, beautiful. And I have to say, in having read it, I love chiropractic. I'm passionate about chiropractic. I want to see chiropractic have a profound, powerful influence in the world and to grow. And reading this has just continued to energize me. And I just, again, I loved it. Grab your copy. If you're a student, read it. My kids, reading it. They're in chiropractic college. If you're a student, you've got to read it. If you're a chiropractor, doesn't matter whether you are a little bit jaded, or read it then. But even if you are not, it's going to elevate you to another level of impact and service. And again, anyone who's not a chiropractor, well, we need more chiropractors read it too. So I love that. The question I wanted to ask, you spoke about how impactful it has been in people's lives. As an author of not just 2 books, you've actually got other books out there, another book out there as well. What does it mean to you, the feedback that you get when people do say it's inspired me, or it's energized me, it's switched me back onto my love of chiropractic, or now I'm going to do chiropractic? How has the writing of this not just impacted other people, but its impact on them changed you or made you feel?
Well, I mean, it makes me feel joyful, like you can't even imagine. It makes you feel useful. It makes you feel like your experience and the time and effort that you put in. Because again, I'm going to remind you, each book was like getting your teeth pulled. It's a very painful process to write a book if you want to do it well, right? And I knew what was on the line here, so I wanted to do it well, and I wanted to make it a classic. I wanted to have it at the same level of Green Books or the Blue Books of Strauss. This is why we have the color scheme of red. We have the red Schubel books, right? So, I had a Facebook message like 2 weeks ago from a woman who's a doctor of chiropractic. She said, we read this with my kids before they go to bed at night. And I was like, I didn't know if that was maybe an insult, like your book is so boring, like we use it to get the kids to sleep. But I say that in a jestful manner. It was because they want to program those children's mind with the power of chiropractic. And I felt honored that they're using this book to show them just how wonderful chiropractic is from a different, it's not from mom and dad's perspective. Your kids, a lot of times, you're not the genius in the house, right? Like, even my kids, they laugh, they, go, Dad, I just can't believe all these people are reading these books and saying, we see you in your underwear. You know what I mean? It's like, you're not that magical, like this whole thing. So it's nice to hear from the public at large how it's changed their lives. But again, Dr. Marcus, I'll go back to this. To me, I mean, I'm happy that it changes a doctor of chiropractic's life. I'm happy that it changes a student's life. I'm happy that it changes somebody's life that decides to study chiropractic. But the way I look at this is exponentially, because I know if I can change a doctor of chiropractic's mind and get them on fire about chiropractic, and that increases or grows their practice, I know the effect that's going to have on the world. And so my world is getting better every day the more people read this. And I think this book actually should be, frankly, again, I think this book should be required reading for first-year chiropractic students. I think you would watch the dropout rates of chiropractic college would go way down if people could fall in love with chiropractic. That's how you get through all the traumatic experiences in chiropractic school. Look, when things are down and out, when you're tough, when things are tough in your life, when you feel like you're going to quit, that's the universe saying, do you really want this? And this book reminds you, yes, I really do want this. I'm willing to go through hell in a handbasket in order to get to the other side. And as Hannibal, the great warrior, said, we know what we want. If there's no roads, we're going to build roads. If there's a mountain, we're going above it. We're going around it. We're going to tunnel through it, because we're passionate about what we want in this world. And if you're passionate about seeing a world that is living its life through an optimized nervous system, then this book will reconnect you to that passion. It's just a story about how to develop a lifetime passion for chiropractic. And I mean, you look at me, I don't know, maybe I've been out in the chiropractic profession 26 years now. I have 24 chiropractic offices. There's something I'm doing that's different than the average person. And I'm going to tell you, Dr. Marcus, I honestly feel, and you say, well, he wrote 2 books. I feel like I'm just getting started here. I mean, I feel like I'm just getting warmed up. I feel like there's so much more to do. And I feel thankful and blessed that I keep accumulating these experiences. But, my dad told me a long time ago, look, you're going to learn this chiropractic and you're going to go to chiropractic college and we're going to spend a lot of time and money and pain and effort and force to get you there. And you're going to come out with this tremendous blessing as a chiropractor. And you're going to live a different life than I ever did. But with those blessings, son, you have a moral obligation to share those blessings with the world. And so, like, even when writing this book, there were times, Dr. Judd and I, it was almost a mutual homicide that we had going on. We both hated each other mutually, and because we're struggling, we're putting each other down because we're saying that's not right, that's not it. And neither of us took personal offense to it. It's because we knew we wanted to refine ourselves. We knew each of us were tearing each other apart so that we could get to the gold. And that's what that's why I think Dr. Judd O'Grady is one of my best friends in the world. And we wrote this together, and like I said, we were at each other's throats the whole time. It was painful, but it was because we wanted to create a masterpiece. We wanted to create something that when we're long gone, this thing still keeps giving. This thing still keeps maximizing the optimal potential of this world. We knew what was at stake, and that's why we put our hearts and our souls and every fiber of our being into writing this book. And that's why if you read this book, it reads like a novel. I mean, it's just, you could pick this up. Most people tell me they pick it up and they almost don't even put it down. It's like hard to put down. They want to finish it. They want to get to the end of it. And then they want to know what happens after this, or they want a sequel to it. So I don't know, maybe if I lose my mind again, I'll write the sequel to this. But, the point is, I just feel so blessed in this world. And I'm so thankful and I'm so grateful for the life that I have, for the life that my children have, that my family have, that my patients have, that the people that I interact in my mentorship program have. And it's all because of chiropractic. And all I did was fall in love with this thing called chiropractic, and then constantly try to figure out how to express it at its optimal level, and then share my experiences with other people so that they could do the same. Because nothing I've done is magical, is nothing that everybody, listen, I'm going to say it again. If I can do it, everybody can do it. But here's what not everybody is not and what I am. I know exactly what I want, and I am absolutely persistent in getting it. And persistence is the great equalizer on this planet. You can have anything that anybody else has if you're persistent enough in your action to get it. And everybody fails along the way. Everybody makes mistakes along the way. Everybody gets depressed, feels like you're a failure, feels like you're not the one, you're not as good as that person. Everybody has that feeling. But I take action in spite of that, because I know what's at stake. And I know in the end that if I'm striving to help more people, to serve more people, and to serve the people I'm already serving better, how can I lose at that? How can I lose at that endeavor, right? If the entire endeavor that you have in this life is to give your blessings out to more people, how can you lose at that? And that's what my experience is. I have to tell you, thankfully, financially, I've been blessed like you can't even imagine. From the time I was 30 years old, I never had to work. I never had to work financially from the time I was 30. But I work every year more because I know that time is short. I'm going to be fertilizing daisies someday, and it's coming around the bend, and you're going to say, in my view, the only regret I'm going to have is I could have gave more. I could have done more. I could have served more. I could have helped more. I shouldn't have been so lazy on that. I should have stepped up to the plate. I should have spoke up, right? That was my time, but I missed it. And I don't want to be in that situation. So I play all out. I'm all out. And that's the only difference between me and the average person is I know exactly what I want. And that's an optimized world. I want a world where every man, woman, and child on the planet has the ability to be checked for vertebral subluxation and adjusted when necessary from birth. That's my vision. And I want to die in the process. I'm going to die in the process of trying to bring that vision to fruition. I know we're not going to get there, like Martin Luther King. I may not get there with you, but we as chiropractors are going to get to the mountaintop, and it's going to happen. And we, Dr. Marcus, as we discussed before this interview, you are crucial to that happening in Australia. And it's just guys like you and me, regular guys, that just said, not on my watch. We're not going to let this chiropractic thing die because it's crucial to the transformation and evolution of the planet. And all we did was say, if it's not me, who's it going to be? I'm going to step up and make it happen.
I love that, brother, and amen to that. And you're absolutely right. And as I said, grab your book. But I want to finish with one last question, really quick. Have a quick chat to the chiropractors about what they can do. You said the great equalizer is persistence. For those who maybe haven't written a book, are thinking about writing a book or doing something of significance and impact instead of sitting back and taking it easy, what's your message about writing a book, making an impact, serving at a higher level?
Well, listen, I mean, if it's writing a book, first of all, just make the decision and sit down and write every day. I was traveling all around the world. I still am. You just get out your laptop while you're on the computer. There's no distractions. I love being on a plane because there's no distractions. I just type away. You have to. What I found, and I watched biographies and listened to interviews with famous writers, and everyone's fascinated. How do you produce a book? And again, you say, oh, Stephen King, he's magical. Stephen King is, for an example, he has a discipline. So he says, I'm going to sit down and spend, let's say, an hour, 2 hours a day, and I'm going to sit in front of my laptop, and I'm just going to write whatever comes out of my head. Well, that's the difference between you and Stephen King. We don't do that. We don't sit down and just go, okay, I'm dedicated to writing a book, so something's got to come out. I guarantee you, if you don't sit down in front of that laptop or you don't start writing and you don't do it in a disciplined fashion, it's not going to materialize. And so that's what happened to us. And don't be afraid of failing, and don't be afraid of having a writer's block. Just keep going at it, right? That's the persistent action. Judd and I would just sit there and say, I'm looking at you, you're looking at me. I'm looking at you, you're looking at me. Eventually, something's got to come out of here. And we would just do it and get frustrated, but we make it happen. And you have to be disciplined if you're going to write a book. And as far as, taking action steps in your practice, if you want to, up the level of your practice, you've got to learn to systematize your practice. And, that's it. And thank you. That's exactly, I wrote Cast to Be Chiropractors, and a lot of people got spizzed up, right? And they took that first action step. But what we found over time, and I'm sure you've seen this, people go to seminars and their office takes off for a week or two, and then it drops right off again. And then they have to go to the next seminar to get spizzed up again and get excited about what's going on. Their office jumps up, and then it rides down to the next seminar. what I found was that people were excited, and that's important on the nonverbal communication, but they were doing the same horrible business systems that they had before. And so they were getting the same horrible results before. They were just more excited and spizzed about the whole thing. You know, they had a new level of excitement or energy. And I find chiropractic, you know, is fascinating. You know, we talk about chiropractic as being the philosophy, science, and art. I think, you know, we said it's a three-legged stool. I say there's a fourth leg, and that's business systems. And that's the nasty thing that we don't want to talk about. You know, we want to love, we want to serve our patients, but we don't want to think that sometimes it's a business. And we kind of feel a little bit yucky about that, or we haven't had training in that. And I'm here to tell you that if you have the business systems down, the philosophy, science, and art is just an absolute joy. You can focus on doing that till your heart's content inside the office. If you have the business systems, because I got to tell you, you want to get spizzed, you want to get excited. There is nothing that will excite me more than having a successful chiropractic business, because it funds my lifestyle, it funds my freedom, and it allows me to share a level of joy with my practice members and serve at a higher level. Let's face it, the more abundant we are financially in the chiropractic office, the more we can get our message out to more people, because that takes finances. The more influence we can have in politics, because that takes finances. And the more freedom we can have in our personal lives, because that takes finances. So this book was written because we've got to say, chiropractors, let's get our business systems down so that we can have more joy in the mindset of successful chiropractic. These two books, this is the marriage. It marries the mindset. Why? How? Why? How? And if you marry the why and the how, get ready to take off. Like I said, get that 5-point seatbelt fastened, because we're going to go flying. And you'll watch your practice. You combine these two books, with the knowledge that's in these two books, apply it, watch everything take off. And it's fun. Practice is fun when it's systematized. And you can grow as much as you want, and you can have as much freedom as you want, because you decide. I was just having a conversation with a colleague of mine who has, he's in the double digits of number of practices. And we were just, saying to each other, every time we want another level of freedom in our lives, all that means is we have to decide a business system to allow that to happen. So we control it. We're working on our business. We're in our business, but we're working on it. We're above it, and we work on it. So many people are caught on the rat wheel of working inside their business, and they're putting out fires, and they're, addressing the latest catastrophe. When you have business systems, that stops happening. And that's, you have a stress, you have a trauma, fine. We systematize it so that doesn't happen again. And this is how you have to start thinking about your business. One of the books that gave me the impetus to write this was The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. When I read that book, I said, okay, I had a personality-driven practice. I saw 1,000 patient visits a week, and I brought associates down, and one after the other failed. And I would love to blame the associate, right, instead of myself. But once I start blaming myself, and I said, okay, it's because they're not you, Schubel. That's why they're not successful. They're not you. So you have to develop a system that allows them to be successful being them. And that's what every major corporation in this world, again, I don't like to use this, but it's a great analogy of McDonald's. I don't care what McDonald's you go in, you're going to get the same experience, because they systematized everything. They could take anybody off the street and teach them how to produce their model of their business the same way worldwide at their level of production. And so, we as chiropractors, instead of putting that down, we can learn from that. I mean, we ain't McDonald's. I mean, we're way better than McDonald's, right? I mean, we're talking about optimizing human expression. We should have the systems that support that. But so many chiropractors are afraid to ask for help. They're afraid to, they're afraid, period. And so they get in these pity parties, they get depressed, and they think that the cause of all their financial woes or their practice problems is the economy, it's the location, it's the associate, it's the CA, it's this, it's that. But once you start saying, oh, wait a minute, it's me. And that can be changed, because you can change yourself from the inside out. It's an inside out job. You get the mindset, and you get the how to make it happen. Schubel's Holy Grail of business. And that's That's an invaluable guide to running any successful business. I have to tell you, I've had attorneys now that are using this book to improve their law practices. I've had accountants that are improving their accountability practices. These are business systems that work for anybody. I just happen to write it specifically for chiropractors. But I have a lot of people in different professions that are using the same fundamental business systems to grow and expand their business.
Yeah, and they are great. And grab your copies, everyone. They're in the link below. Dr. Liam, it's always wonderful speaking with you. I love the passion, love the purpose. I'm cast to be a chiropractor. I know you are too. So let's all go change the world together. Thank you.
Love it, Dr. Marcus. A pleasure being with you.